Yo guys, hey, what's up? It's your boy. I'm back at it once again. Another wrestling video topic I want to talk about. Um, I wanted to talk about this when the news, I guess you could say, broke. Because the WWE kind of, I guess you could say, broke the internet, at least amongst the wrestling fans. Broke the internet, you would say. Last Friday, when Roman Reigns, the last 10 seconds of SmackDown, um, was signing the contract for the three-way for in the title match at the pay-per-view Payback, um, and he said, "Hey, I will win back my Universal title this Sunday. I will be there." That isn't a spoiler. No, this isn't a prediction. It's a spoiler. This isn't a spoiler. It's a prediction or something like that. The famous quote from Paul Heyman that he has been using for the last 4 or 5 years now in reference to Brock Lesnar. Um, and then the camera pans over to the right. We see Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman says Roman Reigns' catchphrase and says, "Believe that." Wrestling, the wrestling bubble like popped that whole that weekend. Um, just because Roman Reigns has aligned himself with Paul Heyman. Fast forward 2 days later to the pay per view on Sunday. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Braun get at it. They clash, and then maybe like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the match, when both men were incapacitated, Roman Reigns comes out. His music hits. Uh, he attacks both men with the chair, um, if I remember correctly. And then after that, I guess at some point Bray Wyatt gets hit or something, rolls out of the ring, and then Braun gets up. Roman spears him, pins him. Universal Champion once again, this time with the blueberry strap, and Payback ended with Roman Reigns standing tall as the new champ and having Paul Heyman in his corner. The big thing coming out of this, I don't think it was a surprise to anybody due to his return from SummerSlam to later that week on Friday. You knew Roman Reigns was going to take the belt from Bray after he had just won it from Braun at SummerSlam the following week. Um, the thing about it is that Roman Reigns, they finally pulled the trigger. A guy that has been, for all intents and purposes, their poster child, and they have finally pulled the trigger on Roman Reigns and turned him heel. Their poster child. Something that WWE has reneged on for over a decade and a half to do with John Cena. They came close at one point. I think during the John Cena Rock feud, John Cena had admitted he had new ring gear, music, and everything, that he was going to turn heel after losing to Rock. Then at the ninth hour, Vince McMahon pulled the plug on the whole idea and said, "Nope, we're not doing it." So to have Roman Reigns, a guy that WWE, for all intents and purposes, have really struggled in getting the guy over as, the poster child, and they still have made him the poster child of the company in spite of fans, mixed reactions, negative reactions. If you love him, if you hate him, whatever, they still pushed him in spite of. So he is the poster child of WWE. So for them now to flip him and turn him heel, very interesting. Definitely, I would probably say the most interesting thing storyline wise that WWE has done, probably all year of 2020. Probably all year of 2020. This was the most interesting thing that they have done, storyline wise. And to align them with Paul Heyman, very interesting. A lot of people like the pairing of Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns. I'm still like letting it marinate. Want to see where it goes this Friday or whatever. See how they interact together with each other. Because I'm not saying I'm not sold. I'm sold on the idea of Roman Reigns being heel, but him align with himself with Paul Heyman, I don't know if it fits like a hand in glove. Like Brock Lesnar does. I don't mind the idea at all. I'm just gonna let it play out. I'm not shitting on it. The idea of Heyman working with Roman has potential. Roman Reigns being a heel, it's great, but him being on top of him being a heel, having Paul Heyman in his corner, that is another layer to Roman Reigns' heel character or new heel character that leaves a lot of potential on the table. And I just kind of want to see where it goes, because we really haven't had much interaction with Roman and Paul Heyman to see if they click, if it meshes. Because all we got Friday was like a 10-second ending to the show for SmackDown, and then you fast forward to Payback and you had like the last like maybe 50 seconds of the closing pay-per-view. You see Paul Heyman raising Roman Reigns' hand up in the air, celebrating the title victory. I guess my biggest question is now that you've turned your biggest babyface in your company heel, who do they have to go up against Roman Reigns? Because you look at SmackDown's roster is kind of, I don't want to say the roster is weak, because you've got some talent on that roster, but I don't know. It's weird. Braun Strowman is a heel again, point blank period. The argument could be made that Bray Wyatt is going to be a babyface, maybe not like full-fledged, hug your babies, kiss your puppies type babyface, but just a strange character. A strange character that maybe doesn't really have an allegiance or an alliance to either side, good side or bad side. Maybe Bray Wyatt's character, or The Fiend, is a character that they may now try to book as just being like that gray line character, that character that can play both sides of the fence when need be, or whomever his opposing opponent would be. Bray Wyatt will play the opposition to that. That could be interesting for Bray. So I don't want to say Bray is a full-fledged babyface, but I think Bray Wyatt's going to be like a gray area type of character, where he's not really a heel, but he's not really a face. He just kind of goes against the grain and goes against anybody, and whether it be a heel, he'd be booked up against, he'd be the face in that feud. If he's going up against the face, he'd be the heel, in that feud. So he'd be the opposite of what his opposing opponent, whatever role they're playing, he'd be the complete opposite of it. Which I think that'll be okay. I think that'll be fine for Bray Wyatt. But man, Roman Reigns, I think I've heard a lot of people's opinions over the past week to kind of like help formulate my own thoughts when I thought about it, and just kind of bounce it off other people. And it's really interesting. I do think I agree on the fact one podcaster had made about Roman Reigns does need to kind of, he's got the attitude, but he needs to change his attire. If they're gonna change Roman Reigns, his role and his character, and them aligning him with Paul Heyman, they need to change the whole Roman Reigns package. Different music, different ring attire, something that doesn't associate him with Shield anymore, which he has been clinging on to for the past 5 years since the group broke up, and something to definitely make him different in this new role. It's one thing to have a new edge, new attitude, and for him to act different. Now Roman Reigns needs to look different and needs to be presented differently. So maybe they have new music and ring gear down the pipes. I don't know. Could be. But I like this idea of Roman Reigns being heel. I like this idea of him being with Paul Heyman. It definitely is a lot of room on the table for plenty of potential. I just don't know who would you have to go up against Roman Reigns. another thing that brought out that I thought was interesting that I'm interested to see as well. Now we know we just learned recently, a couple days ago, and even today, actually, some more news had dropped that a lot of Brock Lesnar's merchandise was just completely just all gone from WWE Shop.com. It had been reported through Wrestling Observer 2 days ago, or yesterday actually rather, that Brock Lesnar is no longer with the WWE as a talent. So Brock Lesnar's contract had, as an in-ring talent for WWE, had officially ended on WrestleMania. Once he did his due diligence at WrestleMania, at that point WWE didn't bother to renegotiate with Brock. And I can understand why would Brock want to come anyway, and the climate that the world is in right now. Why should he come back? His merchandise licensing just expired yesterday. So Brock's been done with WWE as an in-ring competitor since WrestleMania, since April of 2020. His merchandise deal just expired yesterday, and that's why WWE removed his merchandise off their website. They also mentioned in the Observer that Brock Lesnar isn't like fired or done or anything like that. It's just more of Brock. When WWE would need Brock, they will come to him and renegotiate with him a new deal. But as for right now, due to them moving forward in this pandemic era, they don't need Brock Lesnar right now. I'm fine with that. I think this works out pretty well, just because I love Brock Lesnar, but I do think WWE needs a breather. That is a relationship. The Brock Lesnar WWE relationship is one that needs a break and needs a breather, because if Brock Lesnar is not in a high profile match that's either WrestleMania or a title match, which he's pretty much has been consistently in for the last 5 years, there's really no place for Brock. And right now, I think he was kind of running his course with the big marquee title matches. He's always winning the belt. We need a little break, just a little break from Brock. I'm not saying get rid of Brock. I love Brock. I think Brock is a draw. The guy is money, but just need a little break from him. So in contrast to that, I mentioned all of this is because I think that's probably why Paul Heyman is probably still on as a contracted as a talent. So because of this, okay, well, hey, fuck it, let's put him with Roman. And it'll be really interesting to see, because we know, if you go back and remember the first feud between Brock and Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman always spoke very highly of Roman Reigns, I guess you could say his legacy and his pedigree. He acknowledged the fact, hey, Roman Reigns is, a Samoan badass. Hey, Roman Reigns is, he comes from this lineage of wrestling royalty, having, his father's Snuka to, The Rock and Rikishi and all these other, his own cousins, the Usos on the current roster, just comes from a family of wrestling royalty. It's in his blood. He is the heir apparent to, this great legacy, this pedigree. We have, you go back, Paul Heyman has spoken highly of that, like in promos and stuff, about Roman Reigns. So it kind of comes full circle and kind of makes sense, that despite him working with his client Brock Lesnar probably moved on, just gone on to do other things. So Paul Heyman, kayfabe I'm saying here, look at Roman and say, hey, you know what? We had our differences, when I was working with my client. Now let me latch on to your bandwagon, because, you've pretty much done it all. Let me take you to another level, pretty much. So it'll be interesting. Another fact that I brought, I didn't touch on, was that another YouTuber, OTR Central, had brought up the point that, was it OTR Central? No, it wasn't OTR Central. Don Tony from the Don Tony Kevin Castle show had mentioned, he brought up a really good point, that we're still in this pandemic era. Coronavirus is still running amok, and everything. And one of the reasons why Roman Reigns was gone for so long was, A, his health concerns for himself and his family. He mentioned If you notice from Roman Reigns' return at SummerSlam to SmackDown that following week to the Payback pay-per-view, Roman Reigns has had very little interaction with a lot of people. Very little. SummerSlam, he came in, he speared Braun, and then he speared Bray. He went back and beat each and every one of them individually, separately. You go to SmackDown later that week, he only had interactions with Adam Pearce, the guy, to sign the contract, and then obviously Paul Heyman was next to him. Then you get to the Payback pay-per-view. Roman Reigns isn't seen at all for like 90% of the match. He comes in last 5 minutes, literally does what Brock Lesnar did at Money in the Bank. Come in the last like minute and a half, does a few moves on some dudes, pins them, wins. In Brock Lesnar's case, he grabbed the briefcase, but same type of thing. And then he goes back up the ramp and celebrates with his title victory. And the point, Don Tony made the point of, what if you notice they've been kind of like practicing like some sort of like social distancing with Roman Reigns. He's back, but is this going to be a habit where Roman Reigns gets booked and you don't really see him that much? He comes in last minute during these matches, or what have you. Are they going to book Roman Reigns like a Brock Lesnar, where we only see him in backstage segments here and there? The only time we really see him is, in pay-per-views. Are they going to be doing things, practicing social distancing and be a little careful with Roman and how he interacts with his opponents in the wrestling ring, backstage segments, what have you? That, I think, is going to be the most interesting thing moving forward, besides like the storyline and everything else moving forward, with Roman's heel turn. These are just my thoughts and opinions on it. What do you guys think? I'm pretty much shocked that WWE had the balls to do, and that Vince McMahon went off. And I would have loved to have been in the creative boardroom meeting when whomever brought up the idea and say, hey, let's turn Roman Reigns heel and let's have him partner up with Paul Heyman as his mouthpiece. I would love to have been in that boardroom meeting to know, like, what were the conversations like? Did it go back and forth? And how long was this plan thought out? Was it marinated? Because I think it's needed. I think it's needed for Roman Reigns and the development of his character and his persona. And I also think it's needed for WWE, as WWE during this pandemic era, creatively, they've not been good. They've been creatively bankrupt, like I said, for some years now. But 2020, due to the pandemic era, they've hit an all-time low. So this is definitely a resurgence of interest, and storyline-wise, at least for SmackDown, especially because SmackDown's just been. So yeah, these are my thoughts on that. I'm down with it. I've always been a fan of Roman Reigns, as you guys know, and I've always, iterated here in my videos. Always been a fan of Roman Reigns, so I welcome the idea, the change for Roman Reigns to be a heel. Because let me know what you think in the box below. Do yourself a favor, hit the like video and subscribe, and don't forget to comment. Peace out.